So the other day, Nintendo performed a Nindies showcase, previewing a bunch of indie games coming out for the Nintendo Switch. I tried doing a live reaction video for it, hoping that they would show off some of the indie games that I'm excited to try out, but only one of them was featured in the presentation. Sure, the other games they showed off were interesting, and there's always a chance I'll get some of them in the future, but I wanted to talk about the games that I know I'll be getting. And so, I present to you my top 4 anticipated indie games for the Nintendo Switch, in random order. Why top 4, you ask? Because the rest of my budget is going towards Mario Kart 8. Alright, so the first game I want to bring up is probably the most obvious, Yooka-Laylee, developed by Playtonic Games. This was the one game that was featured during Nintendo's Nindies showcase. Yooka-Laylee is the spiritual successor to my favorite game of all time, Banjo-Kazooie, a collectathon platformer developed by Rare for the Nintendo 64. In fact, most of Yooka-Laylee's development team is comprised of former Rare employees, and these guys are really trying to give us the next Banjo-Kazooie adventure, without it actually being Banjo-Kazooie. The bear and bird duo have been replaced by a chameleon and bat duo, but you're still collecting a buttload of collectibles, and it even has Grant Kirkhope on board as one of the composers. I am so excited for this game that I actually supported it on Kickstarter. In fact, it's the only game I've supported on Kickstarter. So that's the game that was in Nintendo's showcase. Now let's check out the games that missed the boat, starting with Snake Pass, developed by Sumo Digital. This game is best described as a platformer in which you don't jump. Rather, you have to wrap yourself around posts so that you can reach the next platform without slipping off. It's really cool that not only do you get to play as a snake, but you actually have to play like a snake. If this were any other platformer, you'd probably be coiling up and bouncing around like a spring or something. By the way, apparently the Nintendo Switch is really easy to port games to. Although Snake Pass wasn't initially developed for the Switch, Sumo Digital managed to get the game up and running on the Switch in only a week. I mean, obviously the game still needed to be optimized for the Switch, but still, that's pretty impressive. Now then, the next game on my list is probably one that not many people are paying attention to. That game is Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap, developed by Lizard Cube. This is a remake of Wonder Boy 3, which originally released in 1989 for the Sega Master System, and can also be found on the Wii's Virtual Console under the title of Dragon's Curse. The story goes that upon defeating the final boss of Wonder Boy 2, your hero is cursed and turned into a fire-breathing lizard. Personally, that sounds more like a blessing to me. The game plays out kinda like a simple Metroid game. Throughout the adventure, you'll be transformed into other creatures, with each creature holding a special ability that allows access to new areas. The world that you explore isn't terribly elaborate, but I think the various transformations help keep things interesting. Lizard Cube is definitely putting a lot of effort into this remake, so if you're up for playing an old-school platformer with a transformation gimmick, you should check it out. If, on the other hand, you want a more modern platformer with a transformation gimmick, then the final game on this list might interest you. That game is Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom, developed by Game Atelier. While the previous game is a remake of Wonder Boy 3, this game here is a brand new sequel. Like in Wonder Boy 3, your hero has been turned into a monster and must look for a way to break the curse, all while being turned into a variety of creatures, including a pig, a frog, a snake, and more. While the monster transformations in Wonder Boy 3 are pretty cool, Monster Boy is taking them to a whole new level, with a greater emphasis on using your monster abilities to explore new places. You know, I'm glad that Wonder Boy 3 is getting some love this year, both with a remake and a sequel. It was the only game in the original series that had the transformation mechanic, which was a shame, cause that was pretty neat. Anyway, that is the end of my top 4. Nintendo showed off a lot of indie games in their presentation, but these are the ones I am looking forward to the most. And hey, if you're also interested in these games, but don't want to spend $300 on a Switch? Guess what? You have other options! All 4 of these games will be hitting Steam, and some will also be on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox. As for myself, of course I'm getting the Switch. It has Mario and Zelda. Not that the Switch is worth owning just for Mario and Zelda. In fact, it's not. So I'm glad Nintendo has been aggressive about getting indie support. Right now, I am more interested in indie games than I ever have been. And thanks to Nintendo, there will be no shortage of games to play on the Nintendo Switch. Or at least, that's the optimistic way to look at it. You're on a roll, Nintendo! Don't mess this up!